Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the June 18th edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, and my co-host Rhonda Lawson will be joining us shortly. And tomorrow is Juneteenth, so hopefully you all have something planned to celebrate or just to mark the day. And the day after that is my birthday. So my birthday is June 20th. The day after Juneteenth. So anyway, after a certain point, every birthday is a good one. And I am just blessed to still be able to do the things I'm able to do and enjoy life and, have friends and family around me and people that I love and that love me. This all that's very important. So anyway, tonight we have another amazing show. Before we're going to be giving away one book. Before I bring on the first guest, I do want to give a couple of updates. One of them is that the registration for the National Black Book Festival, if you want to register as a vendor, as an author, publisher, or small business, we are at 95% vendor capacity. So we expect to sell out soon in the next week to 10 days, somewhere in there by the end of the month. So if you want to have a vendor table, please don't procrastinate any longer because we may or may not have a waiting list and that's not guaranteed. So if you make your deposit, it is guaranteed as long as you pay the balance by July 31st. And then for our Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards, the judges are still meeting, but we'll be announcing the finalists for this year on this show on Tuesday, August 13th. So we'll be announcing that in the second half of the show, and you'll get to see the people whose books just really rose to the top in terms of an assessment of what they were doing. So I'm going to bring on our first guest, and her name is Karen Pina. And Karen is a religious faith author. She has a book called Day by Day Glory, Devotional, 100 Days of Sweeping You Up and Away. And Karen, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. Oh, we need to unmute your mic so we can hear you.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Glad to be here tonight.
Yeah, welcome to the show. And you are joining us from where?
I'm in Florida.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Are you all experiencing any weather where you are? I know they had some a few days ago, and there's supposed to be some more coming this way, but I don't think it's coming as far north as we are, and I don't think it's as far east as you are.
Yeah, no, it's just hot.
It's just yeah. Hot. We actually had a little respite from our normal heat.
Yeah, we did too. This week was a little cooler. We got some rain, so thank God for that because it was dry as toast, Gwen.
Yeah, I hear you, and we have to. And the thing about when you're in a warm climate, somebody was complaining to me that it was really hot where they were, and it was 90. And I said, if we have a 90-degree day in the summer, that's a cool day for us. In Houston, that's a cooler day. Our normal day is 95, but it hasn't been that bad yet. And
right now, are you in Texas?
I'm in Houston, yes.
So yeah,
our weather is like Florida's. So,
yeah, that's like a breeze for you all. I get
it. Yeah. 90 is not too bad.
Exactly.
We had a lot of 100-degree days last summer. It was just bad. So I wanted to ask before we get into your book, devotionals are normally a certain number of days. I'm finding when I see them, some are 30 days, some are 60 days, some are 365 days. So why did you pick 100 days?
Yeah, isn't that
Sure.
something a little odd, right?
Yeah.
Well, I picked 100 days because it's just past 40 days of miracles, but not so far into a full year that you can really start to build your muscle in prayer, in exercising your faith to encounter God. And when I was praying about the number of days, he said 100 is enough to sweep them up and away. So the subtitle of the devotional is 100 Days to Sweeping You Up and Away. So that was strategic. It was planned by God. It wasn't just some random number that I picked. And I'm not into numerology, but if you look at 00, right? 0 plus 0, 0. So he was saying, I'm the one. I'm the one that can do this. Like they can't do it, but it's like a grace on this number 100. So that's why 100 days.
Okay. And numbers are important. There's certain numbers of completion. I tell people when when you're writing something, there's certain numbers that are better if you're doing lists of things.
Yes,
7, 7, 10, 12.
exactly. Uh-huh.
So there's or 21. Some people skip. I have a couple of books with numbers on them. The book I wrote with my daughter is called You're Wonderfully Made, 12 Life-Changing Principles for Teen Girls to Embrace.
Mm,
And then I have a book called 21 of Satan's Schemes, Tricks, and Devices.
love it.
And I picked 21 because it was a good number. It
Yes.
was more than 10 because there's a heck of a lot more than 10. There's actually more than 21. I tell people that's not all inclusive. It
Mm-hmm.
is, but it's 21 of the common ones and
Yeah, yeah.
ones that we miss. So, and when I was doing it, I started off, I just was, reading the Bible, and I came up with um, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And then I narrowed it down, and some of them I kind of combined.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those numbers do count. And if you hear from God on something, then that's the end of. You can put a period after it.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. It is a wrap. So tell us about. Do you have a copy of your book with you?
I do, right here. Let me grab it.
Okay.
So here she is, my beauty.
Okay. All
And
right.
if you know anything about, glory, I know that they're trying to hijack all of our colors and rainbows and such, but God whole expanse. Psalm says that the heavens declare the glory of God, right? So this is like, again, sweeping you up and away, right? There's kind of like a wind there, a whirlwind that you can get caught up into. So that's really why. And then all the colors, because God is at the throne. And when you ever look at the throne, there's a rainbow behind the throne. I'm getting this from Ezekiel. You can see this in Revelation. There's a rainbow behind the throne of God. And so the colors are really if you get to the throne. And in this book, I have some tools to get you to the throne. So I want you to go into all the vast expanse of God, the atmosphere of God, the heavens of God, the throne of God, and all of the ways he expresses himself, right? So for example, we know that purple can mean royalty, orange power, blue healing, right? And whatever you need at the throne is how he will reveal himself to you. So that's why all the different colors, not just because I wanted a color for a book or because, like you've never seen a purple cloud, for example, but at the throne, everything, oh, God bless you, that you need is there. Yeah.
Um. Now you sound very knowledgeable about the word, and
Mm,
so I wanted to just get into that a little bit. What is your background and your um?
sure. Yeah. So I am an avid uh, reader of the word, studier of the word. I love the word. I told God really early in my walk when I first got saved back in the early 1989s. He took me off my job and I didn't understand why to study the word. So I was saved one day, Gwen, the next day I was shut in my house fasting and praying. And you know how some people say, when you first start reading the Bible, read the red, go to the books of Jesus. That's not how he dealt with me. He took me right into the book of the prophets, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, and I wanted to experience what I was reading. And that's where my hunger and love for the Lord was kindled. And that's when I had my first encounter with glory. I just simply prayed. I was fasting and praying. I was on a 30-day fast, like week 2 of being saved. I had no job. Everything was stripped from me, lost my car. I was moved in with somebody in the church that I was going into because he wanted my full blown attention. He had been calling me for many years. I guess I was not hearing his call because I didn't know him. Right. And when he got my attention, he was like, oh, it's on. And I start studying and studying and studying, eating the words, praying the word, and wanting to encounter what I saw in the word. And that's how it all began for me. And then I did go to Bible college for a couple of years. But for me, what really struck me about the word was I took it literally and I took it symbolically. And I said, if anyone in the Bible experienced angels, I can too. If they saw the ladder of God like Jacob, right? And can see heavens open up over their house, if they can be laying someplace and the bed become a place where God lays his head and declare, hey, God was in this place, surely, and I didn't even know it. I want to experience that. So I really just was drawn to the people in the word who had encounters with God, real life experiences with God. And if it's in the word, you can have it. So I start desiring that. And the first time I found out about all the prophets who in some way had God touch their mouth, right? So think about Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, right? God took coals and put it on one of the prophets' mouth. He touched and put their words in their mouth. I did not really understand the fullness of that at the time. I was young, but I was like, I want to encounter that. I laid down that night, Gwen, and never forget it. I was in between sleep and awake, just about to go to sleep. And that's still when I encounter God a lot. And I saw this living creature, like Ezekiel describes, with the wings and the face of an eagle. And he swooped down and kissed me in my mouth, kissed me in my mouth. And I went back like this. And my lips from that moment on, for days, weeks, they just felt different. And I start praying like, God, okay, I was happy about the encounter, but more so like what happened. And he said to me, just like these prophetic vessels, I put my word in your mouth. Open your mouth, according to Psalm 84, and I'll fill it. So it's a different thing to go to study the word at a seminary or study it by yourself and allow Holy Spirit to teach you. That's good. But the word is alive. It's quick. It's active. It's powerful. That's Hebrews, right? That's what we know from the word. Jesus is the word. So we should be able to engage the word, encounter the word, see the supernatural God of the Bible. So that to me is beyond just head knowledge. It is, I'm walking this word out. And a great mentor of mine once said to me that if you encounter the word, no one can discount the encounter, right? Like, you know, people argue about, well, should we speak in tongues? Should we not speak in tongues? Should we tie? Should we not tie? I mean, we're so bad now. Should we serve God or should we not serve God? We don't know what we believe anymore. Ask 15 Christians, they all give 15 different answers. However, if you encounter something that is in the Bible, you can't argue me down about that. You cannot tell me that that angel did not kiss me in my mouth because I got Ezekiel 1 to prove it. I got Jeremiah 1 to prove it. I got all the prophets that experienced God in that same way. And we know he's not a respecter of persons. So,
That
yeah.
is true. So I have a question for you, and this came to my mind as you were talking about the prophets. Because some in today's society, some people are labeling themselves prophets, and just give us some characteristics of the biblical prophets, so we know when we encounter one. And
Yeah.
I will just say, from my vantage point,
Yeah.
The prophets weren't trying to raise money by
Yes.
predicting people's future like a soothsayer or a palm reader. That wasn't what prophets in the
Yeah.
Bible did.
Yeah.
But
Well, first of all, they didn't have time for that because they were
mhm,
fasting and praying like God did with me, and they were seeking his face. So when you're praying, fasting, and you're in God's face, you don't have time to seek the money, right? Because you're seeking his face. You're seeking justice, mercy. So that's what the prophets of the time wanted. Jeremiah wanted the leaders to follow God, right? Like he was he was called to leaders. And so if you look at prophets, some of the things they all had in common was that they were called to kings. So it wasn't this kind of individual psychic kind of prophetic thing that we have now where, I'll tell you your address like I don't know it and then I'll give you an offering, right? Like they didn't have time for that. They were dealing with subduing kingdoms, right? They were pulling down, planting Jeremiah, right? They were establishing the kingdom of God in the hearts of men, but also in their society and in their nation. So prophets were making impact beyond people. Not the people, God, Jesus died for people. God so loved the world. I'm not saying anything about that. I am saying, however, that it's bigger than just one individual person in some prophetic line that you stand in. It's about what God wants to do in the earth. And if you look at Elijah, right, and Jezebel, there's a showdown between the good and the evil, right? Even you watch movies, we still see that today. That's why we love those kind of movies, right? So God has always been about raising up a prophet to speak his word, get his message to the people, restore the people back to righteousness, call them to repentance, nations, generations, not one individual person standing in a line. And they were all about righteousness and holiness, right? And many of them lived by faith for God to take care of them. They were so sold out to God, right? It wasn't about the people are going to take care of me. It was about God as my source. And they couldn't
mm,
be brought with money, right? Like they didn't have a price. You couldn't pay them to prophesy against what God was saying, right? I can think about Micaiah, and even how God said he'll put a lying spirit, in the mouth of the prophet. So those prophets were like no nonsense, sold out. You weren't getting anything out of them except for what God was getting out of them. And the other thing is they weren't self-appointed like Jezebel, because Jezebel called herself a prophet, but the prophets in the Bible were called by God. Going back to my encounter, they had a radical encounter with God. He said he called Jeremiah from the womb, right? So if you look at Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, all of them, there were encounters with God that spoke to their assignment, their mission, their calling, and it was radical. It wasn't just I popped up. Some of them were on the backside, like Elijah was a Tishbite. What's a Tishbite? We don't even know what that is, right? So he came from nowhere. So I'm not saying you can't come out of obscurity like we see some of the prophets today, but they had a track record with God. They had walked with God, and none of their words fell to the ground. Unlike some of ours, we prophesy different people into offices they never get into. But that's not what we see in the Bible.
mm.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for that information, and I hope people notice what you were saying. I've
Yeah.
always, um, I know from, and I'm not a Bible scholar, but I know that the prophets in the Bible didn't do things for money.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't predict people's future for money or declare somebody's going to come into some sort of financial windfall and leave your offering at the on the at the altar. By the way,
Mm-hmm. There you go.
that wasn't what they
Yeah,
were
they were all about God's will in
about.
the earth and for his people. Yeah.
So tell us about in the time we have left, and I appreciate your precision and your accuracy and your depth of knowledge about
Thank you.
the word. It's some people use emotion,
Yes.
but you're using clarity.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, so tell us about your book, your devotional, and does it Is it in parts? Is it in stages? Just
Yeah,
tell us
good question.
how a person would use your devotional.
Yeah, well, really, I want you to have your journal, your notebook, your pad. I want you to set aside time every day to go through each day. I want you to be prepared to encounter God. Because one thing about encountering God, whenever you encounter God, heaven, you receive a deposit that you can then deposit and impart into the life of others. So I don't want you to read this like a book. I want you to read it just as he intended it, which is to prepare to sweep you away. So I would suggest that if you can, for 100 days, just focus in on God, get off social media, shut everything down, right? And find a time that works for you. I'm an AM person. I like early mornings of seeking God. I don't know why I have my whole routine in the morning. I can pray at night. I do pray at night, but I find that the mornings are just sweet. So if that's you, then do it in the morning. If it's not, do it in the evening. But read the scriptures that are there. And I have prayers at the end of every devotional. I have some exercises at the end of every devotional. And I will say this, it's going to challenge every area of your life. So be prepared for that, right? Every area of your life, he wants to overtake with his glory, overshadow you with his glory. So that's how you use it. It's preparing to encounter God for 100 days.
Okay. Now, at the end of the 100 days, what can a person expect what the end result to be?
Yeah, well, the end result after 100 days is you're going to be on fire. Quite frankly, you're going to be on fire. You're going to be able to tangibly understand what God's glory is, how it wants to move in your life and through your life every single day. You're going to be able to say, oh, I encountered this realm of glory specifically. You're going to be awakened. This is a book that will awaken you, and it's going to define glory for you so that you can know it beyond goosebumps and a church service and falling out and getting up and staying the same. This is about everyday glory. So let me give you a quick example.
Okay.
When people come to my house, because I told you if Jacob had a ladder, I can have one too. So this is about if someone is coming to you as a business encounter, right? You need to be able to understand the mind of God, not to minister to them per se, but to be able to access a realm that can change things. So this gentleman came out to my house to fix my toilet. And we had the same problem with the toilet several times, right, Gwen? And he came in, same plumber. And this time, you know, little flappers that go up and down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
He
Yes.
told me it was going to be $300 some odd. And so wait, Gwen, I'm in Gwen, you see how you did? Exactly.
Because I bought 2 of them, so I know what they cost.
Look, I'm in this season of my life where it's like, I'm not arguing with you because I understand how glory works. I'm not even having this conversation with you. So I walked away. I just walked away from him. I left him right in the bathroom talking to himself about the price. When I came back, he said he had already put the thing on there. It was like, it's going to be free. No, you didn't make up your mind it's going to be free. I went into the glory realm because I know who I am. And you didn't have a choice but to give it to me for free because you were trying to rob me. Little things like that. And that may sound so simple, but you know the times we're living in, right? Like if you don't know how to change things in an instant, you're going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
that's the kind of that I'm talking about in your everyday life, not just this, you know, ooh, we had a high time in church. No, this is for your living, for you, your family, your children. It's an inheritance. It's a legacy that I believe God has called me to leave in the lives of people.
Well, when you talked about when people say we had church or falling out or whatever, actually, the word says if it's delivered with gladness, meaning excitement, it does not have the same impact. So we need to be sober and discerning when we're in the word, and just not. It's good to be excited and it's good to praise and I'm a member of the choir at my church, so I love singing, and
Yeah, me
praise
too.
and worship portion of service
Uh-huh.
is great, and it gets the people in the spiritual mood, hopefully. But we need to be sober and discerning when we are when we're learning the word and when we're operating in this world. We have to be very vigilant.
Exactly. And
As
guess what? I don't have time to rev up to some place in a moment like that. I've got to be tapped in at all times, right? So there's
right.
nothing wrong with that, but I don't have time for 3 selections in a sermon before I get to shift atmosphere and change things, right? Like, you can't have a whole church service. And then, like, okay, now I'm ready. No, it doesn't work like that. So that's what I believe this book will do, is get you postured to live in glory and access it at any time when you need it. When you need it. I could go on and on and on and story about this. I needed a refrigerator. We have small cars. I was at Home Depot, right? And we were looking at refrigerators. I was like, how are we gonna get this thing home? We had lost power because Florida power. We have a generator, but we lost power. Everything in the refrigerator, something went down the refrigerator. Long story short, went to Home Depot looking for it, and I was in the middle of Home Depot. And I said, God, I need you right now. Simple. I didn't shout. I didn't speak in tongues. I didn't turn around the aisle 15 times. Guess what? This man came over. I was walking outside as I was praying. He ran me down. He said, did you buy that refrigerator? I said, no, I didn't. It wasn't even a second after I said, I need you. Gwen, he says, well, go get it. I can help you bring it home. How do you know I needed a ride to bring it home? How do you know? How do you know? Because I prayed and God sent help.
Yeah, sometimes it can be so simple that it's almost unbelievable.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it can be. Now, do you work in ministry at your church?
My husband and I actually lead a prayer center. It's called the House of Prayer, Arm Diamond. And so we lead in that vein. We do also glory tours. So we were in Houston a couple years ago. So the 5 states that we go to and teach on the glory and part train ministry and business leaders: Texas, North Carolina, Arizona, and we also go to Georgia. So those are the states that we're called to go teach this in. We do teaching online too. I have an online learning community, but we served for many, many, many years, Gwen, in a local assembly. And then God was like, now it's time for me to bring you into your kingdom assignment. So we still do have leaders that we're accountable to, but we're now in the phase of work where we are doing what God has called us to do and put us on this earth to do. And I'm so excited about it. We served very well and we have great favor because of it. Yeah.
Well, one of the viewers, she watches the show regularly. Her name is Antoinette Wyndham. She says you're all. She says she is awesome, inspiring, informative, entertaining, and persuasive.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you.
that is true because you have a gift of being um persuasive without bullying. Some people bully, people have different personality traits and they have different approaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yours is you deliver all the information with a smile
Yeah.
and with confidence.
Yes. I hear you. Yeah. I'm not one of those stick 'em up preachers. You know what I mean? Like you feel like you're being like it's a stick up. Like if you don't do something, something's gonna happen. And they'll even tell you. Like, I've heard people say, like, if you don't do this, you're crazy. Or I've heard people say to, like, they're ministering and they're like, oh, our crazy people. Like, okay, no. I don't want to sit under someone who's threatening me or calling me crazy or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, we're supposed to exhibit the fruit of the spirit. I was talking to someone recently, Gwen, and they told me, we were talking yesterday, and she said, I was just telling her how God doesn't, when God is speaking to us, he doesn't keep bringing up our weaknesses. Like that's what man does, right? So I can't remember a time I've gone into God's presence and he's like, Karen, let me just point out that this is this, and this is where you're weak. No, he talks to us about our strengths. He builds us, right? He encourages us. I'm not saying that he will not correct you. Of course he will. And
Mhm.
but he allows circumstances to do that. In his wise, infinite wisdom, he brings people and circumstances in your life to mold you, shape you, and refine you. He doesn't have a one-on-one talk with you and start reading down your list of all the things that you're weak in. No, he builds you up to where he wants you to be. He talks about your strength. That's why sometimes when he calls us and tells us things about ourselves, we're like, wow, we're blown away because we can't believe it, because we are on the decline, always thinking down of ourselves, pulling ourselves down. But no, God is always building us up. And that's the spirit of prophecy, which is the spirit of Jesus Christ. So if you're telling me that, going back to prophets, you're a prophet, but you're insulting me every step of the way, maybe not. Because prophecy is edification. It's one dimension of edification. It's correction too, but more edification than anything. So I appreciate that. And that's what we should be doing. That's what Christ does.
I
Yeah.
agree. Just a common example that people know about with Moses. He didn't think he had what it took to lead the people,
Yep. See that? Yep.
but he was one of the main names in the Bible that just about everybody knows.
Yeah.
And he led the people. And sometimes when you lead people, like the example he gave, and I want to welcome my co-host to the show. She sometimes she works for
Too
our
much.
federal government.
Mm.
And sometimes um she runs behind because after all, duty calls. And she's a veteran, so
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you, Karen.
You too. You too. Yeah.
yeah, Karen is very well versed scripturally. She's one of the your delivery, and I'm a PK, so I've heard preachers my whole life, since birth,
Oh,
all,
wow.
all kinds. Um, you know, not women growing up because that was foreboding. Um,
Yes.
so, but even my dad, who was an old school minister, he's passed now, but
Yeah.
he came around when it came to women because he recognized that God can, first of all, when God calls you, you're called, period.
Yes. There you
And
go.
if God can call if he can make I'll say ASS talk,
There
then
you go.
why wouldn't he call a and,
You could have said donkey, Gwen. You could have said donkey. But
I could have,
you're talking
but
about that
but if
though.
he can make a rock cry out,
Well,
then
no. While you're talking about that though, one thing I usually like to point out when we talk about Moses' story was that God was about to kill Moses because he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. And if it weren't for his wife standing up the way she did, he would have died that night because his wife was the one who came and circumcised their son because he wasn't going to do it, and he wasn't listening to God. So I think a lot of people forget about that part, that the Zipporah was there for him and actually stood up for him. If it wasn't for her, there would be no Moses story.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And it goes back to what we were saying, when like God used encouragement, edification to get him to do his will. He didn't stand there and go, yeah, that's right, you dummy, you can't talk.
Right.
right,
Like God didn't
right,
say that to him. That's not how he talks to us. He didn't say, right. He
right.
didn't say, yeah, you are stupid. Now let me send you an angel, so I can make you talk right. No, that's not how he encourages us to get us to do his will. So yeah, good point, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say this about Moses too, because my book is about the glory. And I don't know if you've ever picked this up. Moses was the glory man. But sometimes, even with Moses, there's so many intricacies to his walk with God. Like we will say that he had a temper, and he did. And we'll say, but that's why he didn't, actually go into the promised land, because God told him to speak to the right rock and he struck it. But I think we forget that God loved Moses so much that he
Yes.
still allowed him to see the glory standing right in front of him on the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus. So he didn't miss a thing. He didn't go into the natural promised land. But what would you prefer? To go into a natural promised land or be standing there in front of Jesus transfigured? So glorious, he still got to see the glory. And I love it. So there were so many dimensions to his walk that I just see the grace of God all over him. And, glory, one meaning of it is goodness. So God was just so good to Moses all the way through, even when he was trying to fight him and kick against the pricks every step of the way.
Yeah, sometimes some people who are called to ministry will say that they ran from it for a while because I know my brother who's passed, but he was really a born preacher because when
Yeah.
he was 5, he was mimicking. He could do a whole sermon mimicry. I mean,
Wow.
at 5 years old, and
Wow.
we were kids at church, so we would play church.
Yeah.
As kids we would play. He would always, he was 3 years younger than me, but he would always be the preacher. And
Yeah.
so we would have our church service in the garage, and he would wear one of my bathrobes and or his robe, and we would do it. We would play church because
Wow.
what our world was. But he could preach from a kid, and then when he went to college, he said he really didn't. He Because my dad was a preacher, so he and he was a namesake too. So he said he just
Yeah.
thought maybe he should be doing something else. But he said
Yeah.
God wouldn't allow him to do anything else. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, when you don't know anything about ministry, it's hard to run from it. See, I didn't really grow up in the church. I
okay,
went to Catholic grammar school, right?
okay,
We were like the 3 times a year type of Christians. And I did have a foundation in the word in Catholic school because they make you study the Bible, but I didn't really have a lens for ministry. So again, when he called me, it was come fast, pray, that kind of thing. So I couldn't run from something that I didn't know anything about. I didn't realize he was calling me in that moment, right?
okay.
Like
Mm-hmm.
now I know, but back then I was just like, okay, here I am locked in the house with you. I don't have much of a choice but to seek your face. And then I start getting a hunger for what I was reading. So it's hard to run when you don't know. I think that a lot of people who run from ministry is because they have all these preconceived notions about what it is and what it isn't and what God's going to do and what he's not going to do. When you don't have any of that, you have nothing to run from because you're not comparing it to anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that, to
Yeah.
where you don't have the fears.
Nothing.
uh, You
No
know,
preconceived notions at all
right,
because I don't know what I don't know.
right. Mm.
All I
And
knew was that I love God and I still do, right? So that's a whole different mindset and I want to take one thing real quick. So I didn't know what ministry was, as I said, and I was invited back in the early 2009s to this big women's event. It was like my first big platform speaking before like 1,000 people. And it was really nice. They flew us in, me and my husband, top of the line. Like all the things that people love about ministry, put you up in the hotel, look at my gifts and all that. And I mean, just chauffeured us around all weekend. And I didn't get any sleep because I wanted to be at everything. Every time the doors opened, the prayers and all that, even when I wasn't speaking. Well, I'll never forget it. I was getting ready the night that I was about to speak. I was bone tired. And I watched, it was a whole bunch of women get up and get ready to speak. And every one of them, before they began to speak, they were like, well, I just flew in from so-and-so. And I just flew in from here. And I just flew in from there. And I was just running to rooms and I was tired. So as I was getting dressed, God spoke to me. He says, Karen, is this what you want?
mm,
Is this really what you want? And I knew exactly what he meant. What he was asking me was, is this what you think ministry is, running from place to place speaking? And if you do, is that what you want? And my response to him in that moment was, I want what you want from me.
mm,
Because I didn't, again, associate that with ministry per se, but they were like, I'm in ministry. You see what I'm saying? So I said all that to say, Ministry is bigger than what we ever think it is. It's beyond the pulpit. And the first being that we minister to is God. So if you're not ministering to God, you're not in ministry. I don't care what your title is. I don't care how many people are following you. It's always to Him first. And again, if you go back to every person in the Bible, it was them and God first. And Moses, back to Moses, he went up to the mountain to get something for the people. So
Yeah.
if you're not going to the mountain, what you bringing people? What are you bringing them? You have nothing to give anybody, because we need God. We need God. We don't need your opinion. We don't need your charisma, your hoop. None of that. Nobody needs any of that. It's not setting anybody free. We feel good. We shake, we quake, we roll over, we turn to our neighbor. But at the end of the day, where's the transformation, right, in our lives? And this is Black Authors Matter TV, right? And I feel that sometimes the Black church in general is kind of stuck in a lot of tradition. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And things that they think equates to ministry, but we see the cycles over and over and over, generation after generation. You can just look and see. And so it's sad. It breaks my heart. And I just really want us to come up, and that's what this book is about. It's about, listen, we have a high priest, Jesus. He's the mediator. We don't need a middleman. Let's learn how to get to God for ourselves. Let's learn how to encounter God in our homes. When Jesus saved, have you ever noticed? And the whole house believed. He wants our whole house to be transformed, save all of our family members. That's what He wants. And so if you get that from your local congregation, bravo. Hats off to that leader, but that's not the norm. Most people aren't getting that. And we need to know how to reach God in the times we're living in, because you might not be able to call somebody on the phone, your prayer warrior, your intercessor, your pastor. You need to get to God. And you need to know how to heal your own self, right? There's going to be a day and time. You're not going to be able to take medicine, find medicine, right? It's going to be inaccessible. So you need to know how to do all the things Jesus did.
Well, you have really given us this is, I feel like I've been to church. The Bible study session. You're just so knowledgeable, and I appreciate that, because I did not know what this was going to be about exactly, what you were going to talk about exactly, because we've never met and
Right.
never even had a conversation. So now that I know, if anybody asks me about Karen Pina, I will tell them she knows her stuff, and she listens to God. So hats
There you
off
go.
to you. Now show your book one more time so people can
Yes.
see.
Here it is. Day by day
This
glory.
Day by Day Glory is 100 days
100 days of sweeping you up and away.
sweeping you up and away. So Karen,
And your website is in the chat.
yes.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. Nice meeting you both.
Okay.
Nice meeting
Blessings.
Okay. Well, Rhonda, to give you an update, as you could probably tell, the second guest wasn't logged on and hasn't logged on.
I kind of figured that might
You
be what
figured that out. So yeah, she was so compelling. I said, well, let's just keep going. And he emailed me about the times before an hour ago to make sure he had the time right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log off, and the name of the book, somebody asked, the name of Karen Pina's book was Day by Day Glory Devotional. And I think Rhonda said she put it in the chat.
Yeah, link is in the chat.
Okay, 100 Days of Sweeping You Up and Away. So our second guest was, his name is Gerald Smith, but he's not on. I'm gonna go off camera for a minute and see if I can get him. And if not, we'll just chat a little bit until the next guest after that. We only have 14 minutes. So
Right.
I'm going to go and see, and then I'll be right back. And
Okay.
then you can entertain them in the meantime.
Well, hello everyone. Yeah, sorry for my tardiness. I had a few tasks with work that I needed to complete before I could log in, but I am here. I am happy to be here, and I'm happy to be with you guys again. Hope you guys are coming to Houston. It seems like everybody I talk to is coming to Houston this year, so we're gonna have a party out there. But I do have some exciting news. Last night, I announced the winner of the Meet the World Image Solutions Graduating Senior Scholarship Contest. Her name is Brazil Perkins, and she is posted to the Meet the World Image Solutions Instagram page. So when you have the opportunity, please swing over by the page. Of course, give us a like, and then just give her a few words of encouragement. This young lady is very bright. She's planning on going to Southern University in Louisiana or in Baton Rouge. And she has not only does she have great grades, but she's also deep into community service. And she's a reader. So this girl is going to do very well in life. So I'm really happy about our selection. And I want to thank the ladies who helped me to judge the contest, Dr. Audrey-Ann Moses, Chef Diana Riley, and Shartia Love Jones. All three of them were my judges for this year's scholarship contest, and they did an amazing job, put a lot of thought into it. And I was happy. And I was also happy because she wasn't the only one. Brazil wasn't the only one who entered the essay contest. So she actually competed against other students from different parts of the country. So it's an amazing achievement. She's going to be receiving $1,000 from Meet the World Image Solutions. So if you all can just help me to congratulate this bright young lady, I'm really excited for her. And I can't wait to see what she does in the future. Other than that, I think I also told you that I re-released my novelette, my novella. It's a novella, not a novelette. My novella, Trust. So make sure you swing over to Barnes and Noble and Amazon and get your copy of Trust. Believe me, you do not know. You might think you know, but you don't know how this book ends. So, did you get in touch with the guest?
I did. He's on. I don't know how this happened 2 weeks in a row. He was on Facebook. I don't know how that happened.
Why didn't they say anything in the chat?
He did, but just now.
Oh,
So, but he's on. Hopefully he'll come on the camera and on the mic. And we don't have that much time, but we will hopefully learn about his books. He has some very interesting information about Kentucky. His focus is on Kentucky, where he's from.
I
And
used to.
so, are you doctor? Yes, you're a doctor. So, Dr. Smith, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Oh,
Yeah, talk.
I'm getting feedback. It's a delay.
Okay, you need to turn off your other device. Whatever you have some other device on, you need to turn it off or turn the volume off, turn the sound off of your second device, whatever that is.
I don't have any other device on.
You don't have your cell phone or anything? You don't have your cell phone?
And we don't hear a delay.
Yeah, we don't hear any delay.
It sounds like I'm talking to 5 people. And then I'm hearing myself.
Okay, is Facebook on your computer? Are you in Facebook on your computer? If you are, you need to close the browser. That's the problem.
Yeah, close up Facebook.
Close your Facebook browser. You're just supposed to be in Zoom only.
Okay. Yeah, I was can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I clicked on the, well, I only got about 4 minutes, but anyway, I clicked on the link that was sent to me. It said for the interviewees only. So that's the one I clicked on. So I watched the entire interview with the other guests. And so I just thought I was, in the holding room or something,
Oh,
because
Okay.
my link said only
Well,
only the interviewee uses this link.
oh,
okay.
that's
Okay.
okay. You're here now.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
clicked it.
Well,
Yeah,
that's okay. That
we're
was,
good. No worries. No
yeah.
worries. I'm fine. Trust me. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the other conversation.
Okay.
I'm a pastor as well.
I know that. And so
So I
I
can
see we have
go,
two pastors, well, two people in ministry back to back. And that the combination of guests on the show is normally kind of random because of the four slots are scheduled at different times. So but that's great because we can continue some of what we were talking about. Your background though is history, and you are also a pastor. So you're a historian. Were you a pastor first or a historian first?
historian. I'm a professor at the University of Kentucky, and I got my PhD in 1988. So I was a professor for 8 years before I acknowledged my call to preach in 1996. And then I started pastoring in 2003. Pastored one church for 8 years, and I'm now pastoring my second church, Pilgrim Baptist Church, which is in Lexington, Kentucky. So I've got a little over 20 years as a pastor and
Okay.
more than 28 years in the ministry, and then 36 years as a professor.
Professor, okay. Um, one of the books that I saw that really caught my attention um, was actually your previous book, your Kentucky African American Encyclopedia,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was so unique. And I was wondering what is included in the encyclopedia and what encouraged you to do something like that.
Well, it's the first of its kind. It was published originally in 2015. So it's comprehensive. It includes people, places, events, organizations, institutions. We wanted to make it accessible to students, to young people, but also having enough intellectual integrity to it that anybody can read it and get some unknown facts about the Kentucky Black experience. So there are a number of photographs in it, and wanted to make sure that when we wrote about individuals, that they were more pen portraits. In other words, not only speak about the person's life, but go as far as to even identify where they're buried. Because as people are reading the encyclopedia, there are people who are in cemeteries who are well known in Kentucky during the time they lived, and nobody even knows they existed. I just gave a talk this past Saturday in the western part of Kentucky, in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and in my presentation, I shared some things about their local cemetery that the people didn't even know, are real interesting unknown facts. But that book, the Kentucky African American Encyclopedia, was published in 2015, which actually served as a springboard for the book that was published last year, Slavery and Freedom in the Bluegrass State, Revisiting My Old Kentucky Home. And let me just pause real quick. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate you give me 5 minutes. That's a blessing. So I'm not worried about that. Whatever happened, I'm good. I am real laid back. Okay.
I will say though, your book does sound intriguing. I don't know if you heard when I said I lived in Kentucky for 3 years, a long time ago. That was my first duty station. I was stationed at Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Elizabethtown, Radcliffe, Louisville, that was my corridor up and down
Wow.
that street. So yeah, so just listening to you kind of brings back some memories when you were naming some of the towns where you've been.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. And
so
I've been all over the state with the encyclopedia. Really took me and my editors all over the state of Kentucky. And I would often we have two daughters, and my youngest daughter at the time was about 14 years old. She loved to travel with dad, as I went to these different places, and she would take notes and that sort of thing. I thought she was going to be a historian like her dad, but she's an OBGYN. She decided to do something
She's a doctor, so
as her calling.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but she's
real
still
proud.
a doctor.
She's still a doctor, and I always tell people she's a real doctor. I
Yes.
can't help you. She can help you, but
And
a
you
lot of that.
Oh, I
I'm
was just
sorry.
gonna say, you were doing the research for the encyclopedia. Did you find that there were African Americans right in the state who didn't know some of the history that
Oh
you?
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, just and understand that there were over 100 authors who wrote entries for the encyclopedia, and as the general editors, our responsibility was to really identify, what entries we wanted to include it. Because it was in a book, you can't include everything and everybody, so there had to be some guidelines in place to discern, okay, who's in, who's out, who's on the fence. There are 120 counties in Kentucky, doing as best as we could to represent each of the counties with an entry to make sure that it was diverse, not only in terms of regionally, but also in terms of men and women, young and old, professionals, lay people, ordinary folks, those who did extraordinary things, which included people like Muhammad Ali, for example.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, was
yeah.
he from Kentucky?
And
Yeah, he's from Louisville.
he has a
Oh,
museum in Louisville, doesn't he?
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
yeah.
The museum, the Muhammad Ali Center, is in Louisville, but he's from Louisville. I mean, that's his home. That was his home, and
oh,
he's
okay.
buried in Louisville too.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I didn't really know where he was from.
There's a lot of history in Kentucky, but I didn't know. Well, I knew it later. I knew it while I was living there, but I found out, I guess, about a year or so after I had moved there, was that when I was stationed at Fort Knox, there was an airfield called Godman Army Airfield, and that was actually Tuskegee Airmen base at back in the 40s, and I had the pleasure and the opportunity to interview a Tuskegee Airman. He's long since passed, but I was really honored to be able to go to his home, and I got to meet him. And he invited a friend over, and we got to just sit and listen to them share their memories of being stationed at Godman Army Airfield.
And
Hopefully
some of them lived in Richmond, Kentucky. Richmond, Kentucky is about 25 miles from Lexington. And one of the gentlemen just passed less than 10 years ago. I know. In fact, that one of the highways is named for the Tuskegee Airmen.
Now, when we think, normally Kentucky is not one of the places that you normally will say it's a lot of Black people. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's
And I
not.
know exactly what you mean.
Okay.
That was
It's
the
not.
reason behind the book.
Okay.
I mean, and definitely the reason behind the book. And if I could just have, I know my time is up. I got 1 minute, but
You can
but if
do
I could
2
just say,
minutes.
okay, 2 minutes. Thank you. If I could just say, one quick word about this book, Slavery and Freedom in the
Yes.
Bluegrass State,
Yes.
Revisiting My Old Kentucky Home. And the reason I titled it Revisiting My Old Kentucky Home, perhaps you watched the Kentucky Derby or heard them singing My Old Kentucky Home, the sun shines bright in my old, all of that whole fanfare and so forth. And, it's basically a song written by Stephen Collins Foster, who is writing in the voice of an enslaved person being sold to the Deep South. And the myth is that slavery was milder in Kentucky than it was, let's say, in Mississippi and Georgia and Alabama and all of that. And so I titled the book Revisiting My Old Kentucky Home because, I thought that it's important that I use that song as well as the site, because there is a museum, My Old Kentucky Home in Bardstown, Kentucky. And so I wanted to use the song and the site as a visual metaphor, for how we understand, how we teach, how we learn, how we study the Black experience in Kentucky. Because as you said, nobody really thinks about Black people in Kentucky because it's a northern state. But what happened, and I started working on this book in the spring of 2020, right after the killing of Breonna Taylor. And so with the killing of Breonna Taylor in Louisville in March of 2020, now all of a sudden, not only is racial justice and violence and policing and all of that's happening around the world and questions about equity, but what her killing did, it put a global spotlight on the state of Kentucky and on Louisville, which is the largest city in Kentucky. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, wait a minute, what's going on in Louisville, Kentucky? I've heard of the Derby, but look what's happening, how Black people are being treated. And so I wanted to sort of capture, the enslaved period, freedom, as well as civil rights, and look at various themes in the state, looking at identity, looking at freedom, looking at violence, looking at citizenship. How did all of this relate to Black people in Kentucky, which was a border state? We hear about Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, or even in the North, whether it's cities like Chicago or Detroit, Milwaukee, the list goes on. But as you said, nobody thinks about Kentucky. And Kentucky has an amazing story.
Do you have a copy of your new book with handy?
I do not.
Okay.
I know it's hard to believe. The book came out in January of 2023. I gave the last copy away to a person, and mine are at my office.
But that's the poster behind you, right?
No, that's two. I have 5 books.
Okay.
And one deals with Martin Luther King, but I have 4 on Kentucky. That's one of the encyclopedia behind me.
Gotcha.
And then I have another book on Lexington, and then I have the book that we were just talking about, Slavery and Freedom in the Bluegrass State. And then I have another one on a Black college president. You've heard of Kentucky State University, perhaps? Well, I wrote, my first book was on a man named Rufus Atwood, who was the president of Kentucky State College. And so in that book, I talked about the role of Black college presidents during the period of segregation. And because many of our leaders in the 1960s were products of these Black higher learning institutions, whether it's, Ralph Abernathy, or whether it's Whitney Young, the list goes on and on. In fact, Whitney Young was a graduate of Kentucky State who was influenced by Rufus Atwood. So I thought it was important to really capture what the Black college president was doing during the period of segregation. Okay. And again, thank you so much. I've overspent my time. I'm sorry about the confusion, but that's the way things work for me. That's why I don't sweat. There's always some drama.
But you know what? You might have had 10 minutes, but you put out so much information, and that 10 minutes is so interesting. So I thank you for taking the time to go ahead and talk with us anyway.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And this is Professor or Dr. Gerald. What's your middle initial? L. L. Smith. So look him up. His books are on.
Yeah, we can go to our church. Now for me, let me say this. Now, I love being a professor, right? And doing the research, but my calling is pastoring. Okay. And so that's why I enjoyed. And so our church is Pilgrim Baptist Church, pbcchurch.org. pbcchurch.org. And but anyway, thank you so much. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Professor Smith, and we were able to get him on with his book. Okay, our next guest, and we do have one book we're giving away. I guess we'll do it after this interview, since we had a little bit of a challenge. So, and I'm not going to say the book because I don't want to give anybody a head start.
Yeah, you know how they are.
In the book. So the book giveaway, we'll do everything after this interview with Omari Richards. And Omari, thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. And thank you for your patience. I knew you were waiting for a couple of extra minutes in there. So welcome to the show. And
thank you for having me.
Welcome to the world of books. You're a fantasy author.
Yes, I am.
You were born to Dominican immigrants.
Yes.
So just tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to writing.
Well, I was born from 2 parents from the Commonwealth of Dominica, a small island in the Dominican, in the Caribbean Sea that's right by Martinique and Guadeloupe. My parents were theater kids. They were very politically active. They were very into reading and writing. My father is a grammar school teacher, and he's a college professor, and my mother just really loves books. So as you can imagine, I just grew up with a lot of books in the house, oral storytelling, and just storytelling everywhere you can think of. So that of course brought me into a lot of reading. I love comic books. I love fantasy novels such as the Redwall series and Treasure Island and other adventure books of that nature. And that led me to wanting to write my own. But I didn't really get the idea for this book until I picked up Christopher Paolini's Aragon and Eldest book series and realized there weren't a lot of Black characters in the fantasy genre. So I decided to write one.
It sounds like you were an advanced reader growing up.
Yeah, my parents like to say the very first word I read was "no left turn," and I read that when I was like 3 or 4 or something like that. Um, I don't know how advanced that is, but they were pretty impressed, and I've just been reading ever since.
Yeah,
That's
what's
all.
one thing when you grow up, when you're self-taught reader, more or less. And because I was a self-taught reader around 4, just loved books, pretended to read before I could read. And so been reading ever since. And it's helpful. Someone asked me earlier, a couple of weeks ago, someone interviewed me for an article they were writing about how they could get parents to engage their children with books over the summer. And so, uh, what I was telling the reporter was some kids are self-motivated readers. Like my parents never had to tell me to read. They had to tell me to go to bed. That's what they had to tell me. And even then I wouldn't go to bed, but I would be trying to read in dim light. So, but if they're not self-motivated, the parents have to engage. They have
Yes,
to be intentional.
yes.
Because children can lose whatever they've gained over the summer if they're not reading.
Oh yes.
It's
My
like
my
this.
parents were very hands-on when it came to motivating us to read. They gave us entire summer packages to complete to make sure we didn't lose everything we learned. And my father would always read to me and my brother every night. So the seed for reading, for loving to read was planted very early.
Yeah. I was that same person. I read, I don't remember when I wasn't reading.
Me
Read all through childhood and up to now. The only reason I do audiobooks more than physical books now is just because of my time schedule. But I love a good story, and so I'm always reading. I was on the road today. I had to drive to Front Royal, Virginia. It takes almost 2 hours to get there. And it didn't feel right listening to music. So I just turned the music off and turned my audiobook on and just kept on going.
Yeah, audiobooks are perfect for long car rides. I think I've
Yeah.
gone through a good portion of my to be read pile just through audiobooks alone because they can really just help you pass those long hours just so much easier than just listening to a playlist or the radio.
Right, right.
Yeah, one day, you know. Well, I'm gonna be doing a
Yeah,
driving.
has
I'm
to be
gonna
the right
drive.
book.
I'm gonna drive to New Orleans to the conference that we're gonna be at. So maybe, just maybe, I'll do an audio book. I love music though, so I don't know. Anyway, tell us about your book, Omari. Your new book, it's a legacy. Is it a
Is it the
series?
Kimoni Legacy
Uh,
Initiation?
yes, it is the Kimoni Legacy Initiation. I have a
That's a thick
Oh,
book.
okay.
Show us the.
yes,
Oh,
Wow.
wow. That's a lot of words.
it's about 748 pages.
Wow. Now,
Wow.
and for it to be that long,
Excuse me?
did you plan for the book to be that long, or did you just not want to end it, or what
Yes and no. It was always meant to be an epic fantasy, and it was always supposed to be in the same realm of depth and length as, say, a Song of Ice and Fire, um, Wheel of Time, The Blade itself, and other long form fantasy books. But in this particular case, the world and the characters just kept building and building as I was writing. And after a while, it just got to the point where I really couldn't find anywhere to cut out anything without totally toppling the story. So I
Right.
figured, you know what?
Let it roll.
Yeah, let it roll.
And it's a hardcover.
Yes.
Is it in paperback too?
Yes, it is. It is in paperback. It's also in hardback, but I just prefer hardback for
It's a
this.
beautiful cover.
It is beautiful. This
Thank
beautiful
you.
cover. Very, very well done. I'm going to ask you a question, and you can. It looks like AI. Is it AI?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I hired an artist from the website 99 Designs, where you put out what you want from the cover. Several artists come, give you their ideas, and then you choose an artist based off of their idea. And then you do a several back and forth until you get the cover correct.
Okay. I hadn't heard of the 99 Designs. Have you heard of that, Miranda?
I have not, but I might have to look into it.
Yeah, it really comes in handy, and as you can see, the artists do fantastic
It
work.
was
So I would highly
beautiful.
recommend it.
Beautiful work. Beautiful work. So this book is self-published.
Yes, it is.
Wow. You know, kudos to you for not only having a book that looks like any book put out by a big publisher, but to write that many words. Is this your first book?
Yes, it is. I've
Oh,
been writing since I was like 13 years old, but this is like my first official debut novel.
official debut
I
novel.
want to know about the process for finding an editor, because if this book were traditionally published, I think it would be a different story. But because it's self-published and you had to find an editor for this book, I'm sure it was intimidating to some of the people who saw how thick the book was.
Well, the thing is with editors, and one key piece of advice that I've learned from this is find editors that genuinely enjoy the genre that you're writing for.
Okay.
Because not only do they know the tropes and the mechanics and how the story is supposed to sound and how it's supposed to flow, they just really enjoy reading the genre. So when I met with editors who were big fantasy fans, they were not intimidated by the length at all. In fact, they really sank their teeth into it. I had about three developmental design editors for the manuscript, and each of their notes said, this character was underdeveloped or this idea was underdeveloped, add more. And at this point, the book was about 400, 500 pages. So I sent them several messages saying, I just want to confirm, you're asking me to add more of the story, not less. And then I said, yes, because it will make the story better. Do you have enough content to add? And I was like, yes, I do.
See, that's good. I'm glad they didn't try to cut your story down. I mean, they wanted it to be a good story, and if that meant adding more, then add more. There is an audience for not only fantasy books, but for longer form books. Everybody doesn't want to read a short novella.
Exactly. So add more I did, and the 400, 500 pages became the 748 pages it is today. And I'm glad for it, because if I had stuck to the 400, 500 mark, the story would have ended very abruptly, and it would have been not a complete story. I would have had to end it on a cliffhanger. And some people say end the first book on a cliffhanger, but I just wanted like a full, complete story for this first go around.
Oh, I hate it. I hate a cliffhanger. Just tell
Me
me what
too. I don't like one that ends abruptly. Like,
yeah. I mean, if it's a cliffhanger, I want it to make sense. I don't want it to
yes,
be, I don't
yes,
want it to look like you just didn't know what to write next. So you said
right.
put me in for the next book.
Exactly.
Or you really are trying to force me to buy the next book. Like
Right.
you cut the story in half so you could have a series and a sequel, and you're trying to force me to buy the sequel, and I don't like being forced to do anything. So anyway, so tell us a little bit about the story. I mean, it must be multi-generational with so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
to it.
So the Kimoni legacy follows the story of the three siblings you see on the cover,
Okay.
Kamal, Rizia, and Maslow. and they are the three siblings of the titular Kimoni clan. And the clan is a very powerful clan of the Kitwana Savannah, and they're charged with keeping the peace, the security, and enforcing the rule of the crown. All three characters are facing adulthood. Kamau is about to face his rite of passage. Rizia is about to be married at a young age, which is expected for women and girls in that country. And Maslow has been deemed an adult since he was 10 years old. So they all have to grapple with what adulthood means to them, what they have to do to be seen as adults within their society, and what they have to do to be seen as adults within themselves. And while they're going through all that, they discover a major conspiracy against their clan, and they each branch off to try to put a stop to it. And along the way, they run into a lot of magic, monsters, traitors, demons, and worse. And I like to say it's basically, if you take the family dynamics, political intrigue, and complex characters from a Game of Thrones, and then combine it with Alex Haley's generational story of roots, and smash it together, you get my book.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's what I say. I just think it's amazing that you for your first effort, you basically write what will be considered to be kind of a legacy book, you know. I just think that's kudos to you.
Yeah,
That's
I tried to
taking on
write
a
a
lot,
one.
you know.
I tried to
Well,
write a one-off, and it just never really worked out.
yeah. So, and you stuck to what you wanted to do, and you
Yes.
put the if you had developmental editors, that means you've invested in this book.
Yes, I really wanted it to be something memorable, something dynamic, and just something that was worth investing time in, because as I was writing and I got to like page 300 and the source still wasn't done, I thought, okay, I'm asking a lot from the reader. The least I can do is provide a quality story to make it all worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yeah, if I'm gonna read a book that long, I need to make sure that I'm fully immersed in that story. I want it to just hold on to me, and I just can't let go. I can't where I have to get to the end of the chapter, and even once I get to the end of the chapter, something happened at the end of the chapter that makes me want to read the next chapter. It's like when you binge watch Netflix. You know,
Right.
you say you want to watch until the end of the episode, but then something crazy happens in those last couple of minutes, and it makes you want to watch the next one. And the next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, and you have to be at work at 7.
Exactly.
During COVID, that's what happened to my mom and me. You know, some kind of way we I guess we were just looking for something to watch on Netflix, and we ran into All American,
Mhm.
and started watching All American, and then we were like, whoa, what's going on? What was that? Is that his daddy? Next thing you know, it was 9 o'clock the next morning. We were still watching. So that's what I like about books. I think with books, when you're reading that chapter and that chapter is good, and you don't want to stop in the middle of the chapter because it's just that good.
Right.
And then you get to the end of the chapter and you're like, whoa, now I have to read the next chapter. Back when I was married, my husband used to be so mad at me. He's like, you keep talking about one more chapter. I'm like, no, I gotta finish reading this.
Now it looks like the book has been out about a year. Is that right?
Yes, it turned one June, this past June
June
14th.
14th, this week. So how has your journey with it been? How has it been received, and how is it going?
So far, reception has been really, really good. A lot of the reviewers just praise the world building, the characters, the plot. I've had several in-person appearances at various book festivals, and everyone who sees the book cover, they just do like a triple take, and then they just kind of come up to my table, then I just end up talking to them about it, and they're usually almost enamored right away. And I've been doing several interviews, several podcasts, and I've just been seriously working on just trying to get more exposure so that it can get into as many hands as possible. But so far, it's been great.
Mm-hmm. So was this your like was this book the encapsulation of all of your writing efforts? And is this like it, or are you working on another book, or
Oh
In
yes.
other words, are you in the literary industry to stay?
I'm definitely in it to stay. I've been wanting to be a writer since I was like 6 years old. So I'm definitely not going anywhere. But I still need to write a sequel to this book. I'm working on that right now.
Okay.
So far I have 3 books planned, so 2 more left if things go according to plan, with several spin-offs and a few prequels. And but yeah, this is not the end of my literary journey. In fact, it's just starting. And hopefully I want to get into historical fiction and even sci-fi and maybe even urban fantasy. So yeah, you will hopefully be seeing plenty more of me in the time to come.
Okay, now this book, does it what time period does it span? I know it's fantasy, but like what number of years are covered?
In terms of how long it took me to write, or what
No,
time period that takes
no,
place.
the time frame for the storyline. Like, is it
Oh,
20 years? Is it 50 years?
well, I would say it takes place about within the span of a month, but the characters refer to historical events and ancestral events that have taken place like hundreds, maybe thousands of years before. But the immediate story takes place in about, a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
there's so much going on that it feels so much longer.
Okay, because I was thinking, years. That's what I had in my mind. But
No,
but
not yet. We haven't gotten to the years yet.
okay, we haven't gotten to the years yet. Okay. So the span of time for the storyline is short, but they do a lot of references to
Yes.
the past and so forth.
Yes.
Okay. So and these are siblings. The 3 people on the cover are siblings.
They are siblings. Maslow's the oldest, Kamau is the second boy, and Rizia is the youngest.
I'm sorry, did I hear, because I had to not log off, but I had to go off camera for a second. Did you say the span of time in the story is actually relatively short?
Yes, it takes place about maybe a month at the longest, and yeah, it takes place about a month, maybe 3.5 weeks. But so much happens within that short time period. But it's also they also reference several events that happened like hundreds, maybe thousands of years beforehand. And it's all about how what happens in the past tends to ripple into the present, and what ripples in the present ripples into the future. And how do we deal with that? What do we keep from the past? What do we leave behind? Um, how do our decisions in the present affect the future? So on and so forth.
Okay. So do you do anything with your writing for your profession? Like what do
Um,
you do every day?
Your day job.
I work with computers all day.
Okay.
So I run a lot of numbers, crunch a lot of numbers, spend a lot of time on spreadsheets, which is the exact opposite of what I want to do. which is actually which is actually advantageous, because while I'm crunching my numbers, the back of my head, I'm like rolling through all kinds of different scenarios I can put my characters through, and just indulging my imagination, mostly just to break up the monotony of spreadsheets and numbers. But also because my job is mostly done on the computer, and I can automate several things while the machine is doing one job. I can outline, I can develop the characters, I can come up with different plot points. So far, they're all worked on. Both my day job and my writing passions are working in harmony with each other.
Okay. And how long did it take you to write the book from
Uh,
start to finish?
let's see. I started when I was 15 years old. I'm like 30-ish now, so about 15, 17 years.
To write
30.
the book?
Yes, from start to finish.
Oh, wow. So this is really a labor of love and work and all of that.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
longest
To
I
you for
worked,
keeping it going. But we have people that come on the show that
Mhm.
say they it took them 20 years to get the book out to
I
finally get.
remember the book The Water Dancer. He said it took him 10 years to write that book.
mhm.
And his book isn't nearly as long as yours.
Yeah, it was as I look back, it was probably for the best that I took as long as I did because I recently went back and read earlier drafts of the book and they were not good. It was very
That's
cliche, very generic.
that's great self-awareness for you to be able to say that about your own work. Sometimes we get so close to our work and we hold it so close to our hearts that we don't want to admit that something may not be good. So I mean, I like the fact that you said you looked at earlier drafts and said, no, this wasn't it.
Yeah, it was very cliche. It was too straightforward. The characters didn't act or sound like actual people. It just wouldn't have been great. Like when I started, I imagined I would finish by the time I finished high school, and then I would hit the big publishers. And by the time I got into college, I would have a movie deal. And then by the time I finished college, that we would be on the third movie, and then I could pay off all my student loans with it, and all that. And um, maybe it could have happened, but so far I'm glad it happened the way it did now because now I can just go out in the world and say, yes, this book is mine. It's a high quality product, and it's exactly the way I wanted it to be.
Now,
Love
the
it.
story, is it the story that you started telling when you first started writing it?
Oh, not at all.
Essentially.
Oh,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay.
I read the first chapter, and first there was only one main character, Kamau. Second of all, Maslow, his brother, wasn't even a character. He had been killed prior to the events of the book, so it was all about him remembering his brother. And Rizia was just in the background, and it was very much it was almost a straight up Lord of the Rings ripoff, almost, I want to say. There was hardly any originality or depth or anything memorable about it. At some point, I'm gonna have to just post it on my social medias and just to highlight the huge contrast between where I started and where it ended up.
Yeah. Well, show us the cover one more time,
Yes,
and let people know it's called the uh, Kimani Legacy Initiation. Is that what it is?
that is correct.
And tell people how they can get their copy.
You can get the copy on Amazon, both paperback and hardback. You can also order it on Barnes and Noble. And it's also in various bookstores, various independent bookstores such as Busboys and Poets, Mahogany Books. And you can also get it directly from me on my website at omari.richards.com, and I will send you a signed copy.
Wait, you
Okay.
said DC area?
Yes. Busboys and Poets in the DC area and Mahogany Books.
And Mahogany Books.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought you lived in Texas. So you live in DC?
Yeah, I'm in the DMV area.
Oh, so am I.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay in touch.
Well, Omari, congratulations again on your book. It's really amazing that you stuck with it, and you really produced a gem. I just applaud you for your stick to itiveness and your willingness to keep it going and to put out a quality product.
Thank you.
And congratulations on it. And everybody who's watching, go out and get your copy. And it's in paperback and hardcover. So
Yes.
And the website is in the chat. So all you have to do is just click the link and purchase this book.
Would really appreciate it if you did.
Somebody asked one question before you go. Is it time traveling? Is it time?
No, it's mostly fantasy, so there's no time traveling, but there's a lot of magic, like telekinesis, teleportation,
Okay.
bonding with animals, bonding with nature. So there's all different kinds of magic, but unfortunately no time travel.
No time travel. Okay. All right then. Well, have a great evening, Omari, and thank you for being a guest on the show.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. God bless you. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I believe I didn't want to add any more time because I think he's going to be at the festival.
Okay.
I believe. But for those of you who are out there watching the show, Rhonda and I are going to be in two places together before the festival. We'll be in New Orleans for it's the Black Librarians National Conference, and that's the end of July. And then we'll be at the Harlem Book Fair September 7th. So we're going to be going on the road, and we're going to be doing some live interviews from, or just live streaming from both of those events, just to check so you all know we're there and to give you all sort of a view of what's happening. And we're excited about that. And so this is the book we're giving away before we bring on our next guest. This is an advanced reading copy. It's a hardcover advanced reading copy. It's by Chuck D. and Kathy Lopez. It's called Rap Pilates, like it's rap and Pilates together. So the subhead is Body and Mind Conditioning in the Digital Age. And to win this book, the trivia question is, Chuck D was part of a band in the late 80s. What was the name of the band? And the first person you don't even have to look the book up to know that. So whoever types it in first gets the book.
It's too easy.
I know, but I was reading the synopsis and I couldn't derive a good trivia question from what they had there. So
and Mark, you don't get the answer to this. I'm going Mark, you lost.
So it looks like Curtis won the book, but yeah, I think he did it first.
He did.
But some other people came right after him, but Curtis Stevenson, he can research fast, type fast, whatever. So Curtis, the book will be on its way to you later this week. So our final guest is joining us. She is one of the authors from She Publishing, LLC, and She Publishing, they're a friend of the show, as well as sponsors of the National Black Book Festival. And we have their authors on our show from time to time. So Star Rebel is joining us tonight, and her book is called I was getting ready to say The Rebellion, but The Resurrection of Star Rebel, because you have Rebel in your name. So I'm putting them together. But welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
And thank you for being with us tonight.
Definitely.
And you said you want to first let people know Star Rebel's not your real name. It's a pseudonym. So what made you come up with the name Star Rebel to write under?
Yes. So the Rebel is short for rebellious, which is what I was always called anytime I didn't agree with other people or I had different opinions. And star represents the star in the galaxy and how each star is unique and special. And that is how I feel about myself. And so the name Star Rebel signifies that any rebel can be a star.
Well, you must be a star because you have some fans in this chat right now.
I can't see the chat. You have to tell me.
Okay, let's see. She Publishing is here for you, of course.
Oh.
Donna Williams.
Christy Wallace Smith. Do you know that?
Wow.
The AR Second Jurisdiction Department of
Women of Kojic. Women of Kojic.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank
Athea
you.
Washington.
Oh, wow. I'm sure
and
they'll tell me later.
NL Bianco. So you got a lot of fans. So yeah, you're a star already. So your book launch, your first book is The Resurrection of Star Rebel, and it comes out in October.
Yes, I am actually doing the book launch October the 12th, and it's going to be in the city where I'm from, which is Little Rock, Arkansas. And it will also, at that time, be available also online.
Okay, so I'm assuming it's a memoir. Is that what it is?
Yes, it is a memoir. And so The Resurrection of Star Rebel, it's an unadulterated journey of honesty and self-love. It's an honest journey of pain, disappointment, failures, infidelity, and more. But it's also a story of redemption and self-resurrection and coming out of the ashes stronger.
Wow. So the story, I guess it's your story. How tough is it to tell your story? Because I tell people all the time, when you're telling your story, it takes a lot of bravery to be able to kind of strip down in front of the world and then put yourself out there. So what was it like to be able to go through that process of telling that story?
Wow. Well, Dr. Lawson, that is exactly what I went through. And that is why it took me so long to actually share my story. So I'm just going to share something with you. Is the most difficult part of deciding how to write my story was whether I wanted to tell the truth or be honest. So telling the truth to me is like stating the facts, but being honest is more sincere and personal, and it pulls from the depths of your soul. And so honesty is like an entanglement of truth and authenticity. And so I started out writing and I was just being surface level where I was stating the facts. Because being surface level was my comfort zone because I felt safe. But at the same time, I wasn't able to really share my journey. So that's when I decided that I would be 100% authentic.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
And
when was
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, you go ahead because you already engaged with. This is part
Okay.
2 of your question. So do part 2.
Well, yeah. I guess the part 2 of that is that I like what you said about being honest or being truthful and distinguishing that. How do you know what it is that you want to, because you don't know who's going to read your book. You don't know what's in the mindset of the person who is reading the book. So how do you really make that decision on what you want to be honest about?
So I decided to be honest about the things that I felt would help people survive. And a lot of people, when it comes to, your comment about, just really being naked with, your journey, a lot of people like to talk about sometimes what you did on your path to survival.
Exactly.
And they forget to celebrate, or they don't celebrate the survival. And so for me, I am sharing with people that whatever you did to survive, thank you, because you survived. And
Amen.
so that is what this book is about. And that is what I want to actually impart with anyone who reads it. And even though I talk about it being my journey, it's really not just my journey. It's your journey. It's someone you know, someone you love, or someone you may become.
Amen. I love that.
So what stage of your life did you start? A memoir can start from like birth or childhood, or it can start in the middle, like at a crucible. Or so how did you do your memoir? How did you, what did
So,
you, as your launching point?
okay. So I started it with me being young, probably, I think maybe about 13, 14. And my nickname was Mosquito because I had no shape. And so then I talk about how one day it's like I started having breasts, and then all of a sudden my butt was like coming to, and I was like, oh my goodness, good. So it starts out talking about the development and how I started seeing myself early on as a young lady, and it just kind of grew from there. And it does jump into adulthood, and it stays in adulthood.
It stays in adulthood.
It stays in adulthood.
Yeah. So what made you use the word resurrection in your title, as opposed to, you could have picked any word, but what made you pick resurrection?
Well, when you have the opportunity to read the book, I promise you, you will understand. Um, just sharing even bits and pieces, even with a best friend of mine, about what the book was about. And she was like, I just cannot believe that this is about you. And that journey was a true resurrection. What I actually went through in my life, and really letting go of not even the trauma in my life, but also how I thought about myself, and it being so ingrained from what other people thought. And so I evolved into this woman that is self-assured, and it definitely was a complete resurrection.
Okay. Now, at what point, what made you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to write a memoir? What drove you to that point? What happened to say, writing normally is a motivating thing. So what was the jump off for you saying, I'm going to do it?
Okay, here it goes. I've been I've been struggling wanting to write this. I've been wanting to share it. And I've been praying the whole time because I was afraid, right? I was afraid to really share my journey with other people. And in my spirit, I just felt like it was time. I had done the work for myself, prepared myself for what people would possibly think, or even just sharing your story, how it would help people, and people seeing you in a different light. So I had put in the work for myself, and I knew it was time.
So,
So,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you had a follow-up question before I go to something else?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to ask, what has been your, and it seems like your family and your friends have been very supportive, but what has been their reaction once they read that finished product?
For myself, prepared myself for what
reaction once they read that finished product?
So they haven't like read the book yet. So, but there has been a beta group that has read it.
Oh,
And someone very close to me has read it. And she said that it explained a lot about how I acted through the years. And it's like it filled in gaps.
Okay.
And explained about my personality. So they were just really impressed that I even went through all of that. But it's like you look at me and people say, you don't look like what you've been through, which is, a cliche, but it's true.
But I love the term though.
Mhm.
You do?
Yeah, and the reason why is because when you have been through a lot and life has knocked you down so many times, or at least tried to knock you down, and you can still walk with your head up high, people can look at you and say, oh, she must be successful, or she must be this, or she must be that. Um, they don't see what you've been through. And that whole you know my glory, but you don't know my story. That's basically the same thing. People see you as what you are now. They see you as successful. They see you as beautiful. They see you've written a book and you're doing all of these great things, but they don't always realize the struggle that it took to get to that point. So I don't mind it when people use that term. Yes, it is cliche, but I think it means a lot, that people can look at you and not see that life may have not been the nicest to you.
Yeah, and you can look at it like this. They see the finished product, and to create a diamond or a pearl, it requires a process. It's not, it doesn't just happen like poof. It's a process. And so to become the star that you are, it was a process. And so um people have challenges, and no, it's hard to believe that some people will say, I can't believe you even standing after what you experienced. Some people, some stories that people tell on the show or just share with me personally,
Yeah,
then I'm like, wow.
People would not have been able to survive.
Yeah, it's true. So what is your how did you get connected with She Publishing? By the way, they wrote on here, it's a powerful read, that your book is a powerful read. But how did you find She Publishing and connect with our great friend, Shanitha Burton?
Oh yes, and saying great is like an understatement. It's just amazing. So I am so grateful to be part of the She Publishing family. I actually had an author that I grew up with, Gregory Davis, who has written 2 books, and he told me about She Publishing, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out, and from the first time that she invited me to a call she was having with other authors, but I get on the call, and it was literally, my spirit was like just so comfortable and at ease. And I knew at that moment that I wanted to be part of the family. Then I had my one-on-one call with her. And that was like, you my sister, like for real. Like, we changing my name to She Publishing, Star Rebel.
Shanitha has that effect. She's an awesome lady.
She does.
Yes.
Yeah, we were fast friends, and professional colleagues at the same time.
Oh.
Like fast, it happened quickly, like immediately. And some people are real.
Yeah.
And some people aren't real. They might be real for a minute, then they do something crazy, or they, say something crazy or whatever. Shanitha is real. So, we appreciate her so much. And we appreciate being able to provide a platform for the authors that she has under her umbrella. So to let the public know about their books and about them. And I think her motto is kind of, she helps people bring their stories out, their personal stories. A lot of her authors do memoirs.
Mm.
And she helps them bring out the very best that they have. So when you do your launch in October, what are you planning to do? Just like a party, or what kind of event are you having for your launch?
So it's actually going to be unique, like I am. So with that being said, I'll have a venue, and then it's going to be where I have some interesting things in mind that I want to do that are unique. So it's not just going to be like you come and I sit and I, sign books. It's definitely going to be interactive. And you get to actually get to meet other people and kind of, like network and talk, and so it's just going to be a really good feel supportive environment in addition to coming to buy books from me and me share my journey. So
Networking event, like a motivational networking event, or
definitely it's going to be definitely positive field. I will say that, and surprises.
Okay, so where's your event going to be?
I like surprises, but we can't just ease by the surprise.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Now if I tell you, it's not going to be a surprise.
I don't want you to tell me what the surprises are, but are we talking door prizes? Are we talking about some special visitors, or a little of everything? What's going on here?
Well, it's going to be actually a little of everything. I think it's going to be a representative of who I am as Star Rebel, and so people will see me in a different light. It's going to be good.
Okay, and where's your event going to be?
Well, I am actually solidifying the venue right now, but I'll share it soon on my webpage and other places on social media.
Oh, I meant more city, state.
Oh, okay, then. Little Rock, Arkansas, October 12th.
It's your hometown, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so but do you live in Mansville?
Oh, I do. I live in Mansfield, Texas right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I was trying. I know Mansfield's not, it's not a big city or anything. So that's why I was wondering if you were going to have it in Mansfield, but you're having it in Little Rock.
Actually, that's a good point. The lunch is going to be in Little Rock. I will have other book signings, in the DFW area in Texas. Yeah.
Okay, so Mansfield is in DFW.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Metro.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I want to say this. Thank you. Thank you for your platform. Thank you for sharing stories for Black authors and giving them a safe place to really talk about their passion. So I just want to tell you thank you.
Well, I mean, this is what we enjoy doing. We love being able to give a platform to authors of color and to help celebrate your books. Because we want you to be excited about your books, because if you're not excited about them, nobody else will be excited for them. And we're excited when you're excited. So that's the way we can come together and help us to increase each other's platforms. So this is what we do. It's a labor of love, and it's our pleasure to be able to support you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know how many authors we've had from She Publishing, but it's been a lot, several. I would say at least 10 over the time that we've had the show, which is almost 4 years. We'll be celebrating our 4th anniversary soon. The July 30th show will be our 4th anniversary show. And we're going to have some interesting guests. It's not fully booked yet, but it's partly booked, and it's going to be a great night. And now, will you be coming to the National Black Book Festival with She Publishing?
I am working out the details for that, because I really would like to be there. Okay. Definitely.
Yeah,
okay. I might have to see you in the DMV too. In February.
I like that. I like that.
Tell Shanita to tell you about the DMV in February.
Okay. Okay, I'm there.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
For the Black History Month event. Yes. Well, we can't tell people where to get the book yet because it doesn't come out until October. But once it comes out, I'm sure it'll be at the usual places. Where's your how can people connect with you via social media or your website in the meantime?
Sure. So my website is www.starrebel.com.
Okay.
It's also Miss Star Rebel, MS, starrebel.com. And I am actually on TikTok as MissStarRebel.com. And I have a Facebook page, and I believe that is StarRebel.com. So I will say, if you go to my website, it would have all the information on there. So I really admonish everyone to go to www.starrebel.com.
Okay, well, we did put your website in the chat, so everybody please click the link and check out Star Rebel, check out this book. Now, is the book available for pre-sales yet, or is it too soon?
It's too soon, but I think I'm talking with She Publishing about that, and so I'm sure we're probably going to do pre-sale. I've had people already who want to actually go ahead and pre-order, so we're going to have to work that out, because I definitely want people who want to do that to be able to do it. So I want to do one thing real quick. All right, I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to show y'all something.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. So if you use your phone, don't be laughing at me.
She's ready.
Don't laugh at me. If you use your phone and scan this QR code, it will take you straight to my page. And I would appreciate you going there. You know, it definitely has a lot of information on there, and even more to come.
Okay, well, that's good. It's good to be prepared, because a lot of people are using the QR codes now, and that takes them straight to wherever they need to go. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and congratulations on your upcoming book. And I know it will be a great success, because I know Shanitha is going to be in there helping you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Erica wants to know if an electronic version will be available.
Yes.
The ebook?
Yes, I will make sure that's available as well.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you again, and have a great evening.
Okay, thank you. You as well. Bye.
Okay. Good night. Well, that's the show for this week, and we'll be back next Tuesday with another edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I do want to let the audience know the week of July 4th, we won't have a show, because a lot of people are on vacation that week. So, and we'll take off too, but then we'll be here next week on June 25th. And then after that, we'll be back on July 9th.
Yeah, I should probably take off from the Horizons Author Lounge on that week too. Let's just take that whole week off.
Because a lot of people are off. And then we mentioned we're going to be in New Orleans at the Black Librarians National Conference. It's going to be at the Marriott on Canal Street, and that's July 25th through the 27th. And then we'll be at the Harlem Book Fair on September 7th in New York City. So in Harlem. So we're going to be traveling. And then, of course, you'll see us at the National Black Book Festival in October.
Yes.
So that is it for this week's show. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.